Welcome to another Quantum Conversation, brought to you by AcousticHealth.com. I'm Loren Gailey, and I invite you to sit back as we enter the quantum realm, that space of the greater part of you. It is your connection to infinite possibilities, infinite potential, and infinite mastery. Welcome, everyone. This is another episode of QCTV, Quantum Conversations live stream video. Thank you for joining us here on this video or through our audio webcast. We are here today with seer and scientist Elizabeth Wood, who is literally coining new galactic and quantum anthropology as a new field of study. This goes deeply into our DNA, and today she is here to talk about the secret that the dark forgot. Elizabeth, my sister goddess, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Glad to be here with you always.
Oh, we've got a lot to talk about.
Juicy topic, I know.
It is a juicy topic, so we're going to get right down to it. Oh my gosh, what is the secret that the dark forgot?
It's something that we all know in our heart, Lauren. It's that everything is made of light. Even the dark, even the shadow, even the challenges, even the suffering, it's all made of light. And it busts open this amazing, interesting playing ground of good and evil that we've all been taught about, right? And it shifts us into realizing, hey, there's more to it than this. It's not just dark or light either. And so when you go beyond that playing ground, the good and evil playing ground, and you stop labeling things in that duality or polarity, which is normal. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you're ready to be done with that playing ground, we move on to a different polarity, dark and light. And I want to encourage people to move on from there to another playing ground, which reveals this great secret that everything is made of light. It's the playing ground of density and formlessness, because it shows that the suffering, the darkness, the evil, all of it is actually consciousness under pressure. It's consciousness under pressure. It's dense. And what happens when you welcome something so fully? When you merge with that density, it unravels, it unwraps. So we merge with it. That's the one simple step that we're never taught. We're never taught to merge with that darkness, to welcome suffering. But it's our greatest advancement, because we can't go under the wall or around the wall or over the wall. You have to become the wall. And when you become that wall, when you become that suffering, when you welcome it in your body, because the emotional body is our great tool to do that. When you do that, you unwrap that dense information that looked dark before. It was only dark because light couldn't get through that dense, compact information. That's all it all is. It's dense, dense frequencies. And once it's unraveled, the gift, the virtue of light at the center of that suffering is revealed. So recently I had an experience which made this very, very apparent to me. And the gift of light was so incredible. It was so beautiful. And I had this experience, Loren, where I had an abduction experience.
Okay,
and
so
all these are measurable
this?
things.
All right.
Yes.
I was going to ask you to give us an example. And
Yeah,
so,
I got you.
All right, when was this abduction experience?
So this is my third one, and it was in September
Of this year.
And yeah, so just a couple months ago.
Is this when you were sleeping, or?
It was this time. The other two were not. I was awake. So this one, it seemed like a dream, but I had physical repercussions from it. So that was really intense. It was very intense. And I got picked up by a being that I had never met before, right? Oh, were you going to ask me a question? Sorry.
Oh, they're coming, sister. Go ahead. They're coming. I'm going to keep them in.
I got picked up by this being I'd never met before, and I met a lot of different beings. And I interact with them. That's what Galactic Anthropology is all about, that whole layer, that playing field beyond just being on the planet. We're not alone. And so here I'm interacting with this being that has a lot of power over me. And it's physically disempowered me and it's molesting me. And it's very intense. I'm really angry. I'm really afraid. And suddenly all my training, my mystical training kicks in. I said, well, I know exactly how to end this oppression, because that's what it felt like, right? It's oppression. And I said, I know exactly how to end it. I welcome it. I must welcome this pain, this suffering that I'm going through right now. I have to welcome the anger. So where is it in my body? And I find the anger and I welcome it there. It's in my heart. It's in my throat. I welcome that. I welcome the pain of what's going on. And then I welcome the being back. Who does that? I welcome it back. I said, come back to me. I want to know you. And so I imagine this being in front of me. And of course it's there, it's above me, it's lording over me. And this was when I was awake finally. So it's lording over me, and I'm afraid. Yeah. So I merge with it. I actually imagine myself being this being. I imagine myself being them, this interesting, amazing, unique being. And I find what its energy is, its frequency is undying hunger. It didn't have any, big, horrible, mean agenda. It was hungry for information. It was programmed to be searching for something and it couldn't find it. And so I was trashed because it didn't find what it wanted. And so I merge with that and I welcome undying hunger in my whole body. None of this feels good. Suffering doesn't feel good, but when we go to discover that layer of dark in front of us, whatever it is, it can be anything. It can be small, it can be big. This one was big, obviously. I merge with it, welcome it so fully in my whole body, in my whole field, in my whole soul, that it dissolves the consciousness under pressure. It unwraps it. And suddenly I see the universe and I hear Source say, which is unusual for me. I hear Source say, Elizabeth, everything has its place. And suddenly the gift of light is revealed. Universal compassion. Universal compassion. So by sharing this now, I'm helping to embody more universal compassion. But that was a gift that I wasn't expecting by being so welcoming of that challenge and that suffering. And you know what the best gift was? Not just the universal compassion, but that event is not traumatic to me now. It's actually a special event where I was able to up-level and advance my soul in a way I'd never imagined. That was the gift. That's the secret that the dark forgot, is that by welcoming and merging with layers of dark, we keep the balance of density and formlessness. We keep that balance, not by turning away from it, but by going into it and continuing to unwrap those dense forms of consciousness to find the light at the center, like a beautiful gift. And so that was the example I wanted to share. Thank you.
Wow, that's really intense, because that could be so frightening to some, right? I mean, some
Absolutely.
of us would just shut down into fear, but you actually took it and merged. So it's almost as if your higher self was very present or very aware, or maybe, I mean, we could go really deep here in all the conversations that we've had here. We've heard that that could have been an aspect of your higher self or another aspect of you. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, that's what that secret is. It's that everything is the source field. The source field is light information. It's intelligent. We don't know where source field comes from. Source field creates all universes. And it's far, far beyond our ability to grasp mentally, but we can feel it. We can feel that everything is one. But if you want to feel that things are one, if you really want to feel that oneness, merge with each layer of dark that is in front of you, whatever it is. Welcome it so fully in your body, in your field. Your emotional body is your greatest tool for this. So being able to feel that oneness and access what's available a lot of people are wondering, well, how do I get into the fifth dimension, or how do I get to these other higher states of consciousness? Do I have to do special things to go get there and activations? And that's not it. It's already there. The doors are open. If you're willing to merge with every dense layer of trauma that you've ever had and begin to shift it by unwrapping it, unraveling it, we might call it almost quantum archaeology of our own DNA, because we're moving layers of dense, dark stuff. We're dissolving it in order to find the treasure at the bottom. And when we do that, then we find, oh, I can feel the oneness. It's very literal, it's physical. The job is physical. We're meant to ground the access we have already into our physical reality. And so you feel literally oneness. You feel your cells. You feel connected to everything because you're moving the density out of the way, the suffering, the trauma. And there's only one way to do that. You got to go in and you got to welcome it. You got to be really willing to be part of that process. That's the job. This is the human job, to be able to bring all of those dimensions of light to full access. That's why we chose to be in these bodies. We inherit these bodies, and it's like inheriting a house full of junk, because it's 500,000 years of trauma and suffering and oppression, which are very real and valid. But we have the privilege. Here's an incredible thing. We have the privilege of knowing what the job is. And here we are at the peak point of our survival and our freedom and our sovereignty. It doesn't matter what any other agendas are. What is your soul's and your heart's agenda as the human being you are? This is a human job. These bodies are coveted. And it's not true that we are meant to forget who we are in these bodies. It's not true. When you shift more and more of that trauma and more of that junk out of your DNA, out of your physicality, out of your emotional body, you'll start to see and remember more of who you are. You will. This very measurable. This is why I call it a spiritual science. This would be the quantum anthropology piece of those two. So the spiritual science being, what is the job in this body? What does it look like at the quantum level? How do we access the quantum field? It's very simple. That it's like a big sheet, Lauren. This big source field is like a big sheet. And, if you poke your finger up, here's me and here's you. And it looks like there's individuals, sure, but that's an illusion. We never left the source field. So the source field needs to interact with itself in order to discover the purpose of the universe, which again is also very simple. What is love? Other universes ask other questions and answer them. It took a whole universe to answer this question. It took me and you and every single living conscious thing in this entire universe to understand what is love. By merging with that being and its intent and its energy and welcoming it so fully and allowing it to have a place in this universe, I have answered a big part of that question for Source. What is love? That's what love looks like. What is not love? Well, I could hang out with what is not love, but if that's that density, if you go deep into it, you'll just find love again every time. Yes. Does that make sense what I'm saying, Lauren?
Absolutely. And it takes it on a deep level of not looking at evil in the world, but our own movement away from love, to return to love, to remember love again. And this comes down to such a level with us that when we look at our own behaviors, we can see again that the job is to love all of this in the face of everything. It's pretty interesting that you said we have the privilege to be here and we know what the job is. Yes, we do know what the job is. So merging with these layers of darkness, back to the oneness, I love some examples. Mm-hmm. we just sit with our feelings then, right? So when we look at things that may come up, it's the ego as well. And I wanted to mention, as you were saying, that, you know, this goes back to the privilege that we have to figure this out. Judy Callie always loves to come on this show and say, we who are watching this show and who chose up to be here in this lifetime right now spent many lifetimes in the last 100 to 50, 200 years really coming into form, incarnations, to carry a lot of weight and to move through a lot of density.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we look at the density that we're going through, to take your perspective that you're offering us and look at everything from that, that is very liberating, isn't it? It's very liberating. It might not be so easy to do, but that's the job.
Yeah, exactly. I love Judy Callie. She's right on the money. And so I want to give like a very straightforward real life example that's not so galactic. So, you know, someone asked me recently, Elizabeth, you seem to like everyone. You seem to love everybody. How is that possible with all these different people who do terrible things and you still love them? And I said, you know, I might not like what they've done, but I'm so privileged and blessed to see the truth. And the truth is that I don't have to function ego to ego or wound to wound. I can function soul to soul. And so when I speak to someone who's very dense, then I'm not speaking to their ego. I'm not speaking to their wound or their trauma. I'm speaking to their soul. And there's a very different energy about that because we know that that's true. I'm speaking to the potential. You see, it doesn't bother me that someone might have had a past that is less than perfect or even incredibly evil per se. That doesn't bother me. It bothers me that people aren't able to see the potential of that soul, that they've been moving through all of this great evil and making these choices, or moving through this dark, and they're making choices to play in that playing field without necessarily realizing their own potential for light. And that's the lesson, that's the gift in this method. And the method is very simple. It's the welcoming or noticing of your own trigger, the welcoming and noticing of your own reactions. What happens is something will occur and it's all frequency, which is a measurable thing. And so here we have an intense frequency. Maybe somebody says something really mean to you, perhaps, right? So this comment comes flying at you, and of course it hits your heart field, which is the first responder, and you feel it in your heart first. And then your brain reacts, and this is where the reaction comes in. It pings something, it touches upon something dense in you. There's your trauma, there's your ego. And what is egoic structure exactly? Judgment, expectations, attachments, resistance, and of course, trauma. So that's what ego's made of, and that's some dense stuff. Density is literal. It's very literal, it's tight, it's compressed. Light and information aren't easily moving through it, which is why it felt like a hit. Mm-hmm. It feels like that because it's literally hitting ego. Mm-hmm. So if we know this now, this is our framework of thinking then, and we can say, whoa, okay, I see my ego's definitely reacting here. So who is it that just said that? Oh, hey, my ego's reacting here. Well, there's your soul. There's your higher self. There's you. You're not really your body or your ego. These are two very separate things. But the ego and the body and the emotional body are absolutely married. So you feel it. You can feel it when information hits it. And then that's your clue. Oh, there's the next thing for me to process and dissolve. And if you dissolve enough of it by welcoming it, you notice in your body, oh, I'm triggered. Okay. I welcome this anger, this trigger in my whole body, in my field now. And then you breathe because that breath tells the vagus nerve, that that's okay. So one of the ways you're being in charge is you're going to be talking to your body and your ego. We can talk to them. They will respond to you. When you welcome something like that, even physical pain, then you're going to watch it dissolve. This happens with thousands and thousands of people that I work with, Lauren, many thousands at this point. It works. I'm interested only in measurable results because I'm a scientist. And so I found that this method of welcoming that I was taught from my mystical teacher, I wanted to turn it into something that was very, very easy for people to do. To notice the trigger, notice the physicality of it. That's your emotional body letting you know where the ego is, where that density is, that next layer for you to archaeologically dig up and dissolve so you can find the gift of light. And sometimes that gift of light is simply the freedom from that emotion in that moment or the pain in the moment. Now, you got to go in and dig up any more pieces around that. You keep looking at it and over again. It doesn't mean that you're not going to get angry ever again. It means that you've just shifted one layer out of the way. And, you know, archaeology is such that you can keep digging and you just never end up going to the center of the earth. But that's the point, because you advance yourself. You advance yourself as a soul quite quickly by being willing to dig as long and deep as it takes into all that ego. And what happens to you physically then? You feel lighter, literally. You can, a lot of people report, including myself, seeing colors brighter. Well, that makes sense because technically, literally, there's a little bit less density around. So physically, those light wavelengths can reach you better. You're able to respond to healing better. You're able to be more present and stop worrying about the past or the future. You'll respond to trauma and drama a lot differently. And you will find you're less and less triggered because there's no density for it to hit. And if you keep this up, you end up at a point when it's simply upkeep. So then you're not dealing with a house full of trash anymore. Any trash that comes around every day, which it's going to, it just goes right out where it needs to go, back to source. So then the upkeep is then so plain as day. Oh, well, you know, I picked up some negative energy here or whatever, negative emotions. I find, wow, I'm not reacting to it. I don't have any triggers. It's very vivid. It's one of those amazing moments in time when you're like, wow, normally I would react to that. And I did not. Wow, what just happened? It's freedom. That's freedom. It's sovereignty. That's the job. That should be our agenda. That should be everyone's agenda. It should be taught immediately when you can speak and think. What do you love most, and what are you ready to release today? What are you ready to merge with? What's the gift at the center of it? And again, even if the gift is simply a little bit more lightness and freedom from the difficulty of the emotion that you're facing, you know, we're talking about small stuff and big stuff, and at the quantum level, nothing's small. So this is amazing. It's so beautiful, and yet we never are taught this. We're never taught this. We're not taught how to manage our emotions or ego in this way. It's interesting.
Yes, it's very interesting. And this is what you mean by this archaeology and this anthropology of going so deep within and really getting at those thoughts that are literally embedded within us. All right. So it's interesting because as we do this, it is on a quantum level. I want to share a story. I was sharing with you that we've got two stories. You've got your story with your grandfather, and I've got my story. And what we've learned is when we do this work of going back to a timeline, or let's say that memory, and embracing it, we're literally shifting that timeline and all timelines. So here's an example. I told you that I was actually I was at this place yesterday, and I realized that, 50 years earlier, I was like 3 years old and fell into the pool at this very place that I was sitting looking at. And it was like timelines. I felt that little girl, right? There was that, I was holding that little girl. I was merging with that little girl and literally healing some pain that was there. It's really amazing how we can do that by going into that space so deep within ourselves. Now, you as well have a very interesting story. So please share that, because there was something quantum happening.
Yeah, I'd love to. So I got back from a mentoring ship that I did with someone in Hawaii and returned after finally realizing that I really have not been in my body very much all this time. So I was learning how to be in my body while I was there. And I came back home and I called up one of my friends and who's a mystic, and I said, "Am I missing anything?" Which is important. No matter how good of a seer you are, you need help seeing your own stuff. And so I asked her, "Would you do a scan and just see if I'm missing anything?" And she said, "Elizabeth, I see a child. It's one of your, it's a frozen child. It's an inner child." And she's about 4 years old. Well, Lauren, when I was 4, Chernobyl blew, and I was in Germany when Chernobyl blew, and I psychically saw it, and I empathetically through my heart felt it. I felt it, and I had shut my heart down at that time. I wanted to shut down my third eye, but I couldn't. And so I shut my heart down, and I've regained access to my heart this year. I think a lot of people are regaining some access to amazing things and merging with amazing things this year. So I really regained access to my heart, which then allowed her to be available to merge with. And I hadn't even noticed. I hadn't even allowed that to happen. And she pointed it out. She said, "That's the missing piece. You need to merge with her." And I said, "Oh, I can see it. I have built a field of energy, a wall between her and I of guilt. And it was the guilt that I carry from the lifetimes I've spent being really evil." And so I felt guilty because a lot of the evil that I recall from my lifetimes was done to children. So I felt really guilty, and I separated myself from her. I just really didn't want her to have to deal with that, all the memories that I have and the horror, all that dark, dense stuff that I'm continuing to merge with. So she said, welcome her through, release yourself from the guilt. So I did, and I welcomed her. I merged with her fully. Literally, it felt like she blew up into my body, and it felt so good, Lauren. And my body doesn't feel good most of the time. I am in pain. I have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, so my body it's not a great place to be a lot of the time. And I guess I had always imagined that merging with my inner child would be painful, but it wasn't. It was very beautiful, and it felt really good. So I merged with her. She blew up into my body, and I felt her power. I felt her truth. I felt like I could be Elizabeth for the first time, really. And at that exact moment that happened, my grandfather died, literally. The minute that I merged with my inner child, my grandfather, my last grandparent, passed away. And he brought a message through for the divine masculine about the generous, incredible, open heart of the masculine, and to help the masculine be seen and be heard for where they're at and the job they have to merge with the patriarchy and end its power over us through the men. That was the message, and it was received through his death. And all these things happened at once. Like quantumly, it must have looked like an atomic bomb, I guess, because it all happened at once. And it was so magnificent what opened up from there. What has opened from there now is something I'm still discovering, because this is fresh. And I'm still figuring out, wow, this was more than just a doorway that opened. It's like a whole other level of time opened up. through his passing, through him walking out of the body at the exact same time I was being in my body. And it was a gift. It was a gift from him. It was a gift from my inner child. It was a gift from my friend, and all of these things merging all at once. So there's incredible beauty and power in that, merging with our frozen inner children, welcoming their knowledge and their wisdom because they are pure. And they came in a lot of times really loving and knowing that light, and it was quashed through oppression and having to be involved in this matrix oppression. How do we end all of that power over us? By merging with it. It has no more power over you then. And that's how beautiful it was, getting access to all of this. So I'm glad to share that story. Thank you.
And so on a quantum level, it is quite fascinating if we can feel into that and intuit into that. And if we could see it from a major quantum timeline outside of time, it's the healing. It's as if we go back, we've heard this, if we go back and heal that child in that moment, that could have been the moment of inspiration in that child's life that makes a new decision that changes all timelines. And so while we may not, with our linear mind, be able to look and understand what happened with your grandfather, I think all of us, by feeling, I mean, I've got the goosebumps right now. We can feel into that. I think your grandfather's right here.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
we know what happened there. And so thank you for sharing that story. It really is fascinating. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And Grandpa Bob is here, and he has that gift for the masculine and the feminine too, because he was such a good man who loved his wife and loved the children that weren't even his biological children. He loved them endlessly. I didn't even have any clue he was my step grandfather until I was a lot older, and I would have never known, not at all. He had that same
secret.
incredible open heart. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
All right. That's beautiful. See, these are all, I call these the chronicles of love when we
Mm-hmm.
return to love. And so if our individual role is to dig out that dark, then that's what it is. And happy journeying, everyone. Well, Elizabeth, I'd like to ask our audience and our viewers if they've got questions, go ahead on our YouTube question and bring that in. We've also got an after party with you immediately following this broadcast. But first, before we get there, can you lead us in a process that shows us and illustrates what we really could do to select anything that's frozen, whether it's the frozen inner child from whatever aspect that was, or maybe it's an aspect of not so becoming behavior that we like, or maybe it's an aspect of maybe a past life that we feel guilty about, or a trait that we carry in this lifetime. But that would be beautiful to really welcome and merge with that.
Yes, and I'll show everyone the exact process. So if you could think of the most dramatic, traumatic, or biggest emotional energy right now in front of you, maybe it's that bad habit, maybe, and the guilt around it. Maybe it's some of that dark guilt from other lifetimes, like Lauren said. Choose something now. Whatever comes up in your mind first will be the thing you're going to work with here. And so then all you need to do is ask yourself, when I think of this thing in my field, in my consciousness, where is it in my body? And it can be anywhere. It could be your finger. It could be your ear. It could be your nose. I'm serious. Allow it. Find it. So find it in your body. Maybe it's your throat. Maybe it's in your feet. Maybe it's in your legs or another important center of your body. Find it there. Maybe it's in several places at once. Just notice it. All you have to do is notice it. Okay, and now you actually will welcome it. So if you can, say it out loud, or if you can say it in your mind, either way, you say, I welcome this discomfort in my body. I welcome this dark, dense energy that I'm feeling. I welcome this emotion. I welcome this trauma in my whole body and field, especially the spots that you're feeling them now. I welcome them fully now. And then take a big, deep breath. And then notice it shift. Does it shift or change? Does it become a little less? Does it pick a different spot in your body to be in? Find it there and then welcome it again. I welcome this again in my whole body and field now. And then another breath. And so you'll find that it's going to keep changing every time you do this. Now, perhaps it's not quite gone all the way, or perhaps with just those 2 times, now you've felt it release. And what's happened is you've just shifted a layer of dirt, right? Out of your archaeological site, out of your DNA, out of the memory of your embodiment. So now we have this pile of dirt. What are we going to do with this pile of dirt? Well, let's use a heart command to give it back to source. So we're going to move the dirt and we're going to replace it with light. So we'll say, dear heart, please lift any dark or dense energy, any trauma or negative emotions, any binds, ties, or umbilicals, anything I'm not aware of that's ready to go, and any trauma deep in my DNA that's ready to be lifted from my lineage out of my whole body and field now. And then take a big deep breath. So we just sent all the dirt back. We also gave permission for anything that we weren't aware of to leave and go back home so it can be recycled. And now let's replace it. So physics, we don't want to move something out of the way and then not put what we want there, or something might come back in that's not of our choice. So we'll say, dear heart, fill my whole body and field with the pure light of source now. And take a big deep breath. And now that light comes in, that space that was made in your house from the removal of a large amount of that dense energy, now it's full of light. And many people at this point in this moment will notice that the light got a little brighter. It just did for me. It always gets a little brighter every time. It's amazing. You feel a little bit lighter. That's freedom. That's what freedom feels like. That's what having a nice, clean, open house where just your soul lives, not all the trauma and the drama lives. That's what that feels like. And you can do this anytime. You can do it when you're in pain. You can ask for the pain to lift or bring it down a notch, bring it down a notch. You're the soul in charge. That's why we tell the soul what the body and the ego, the soul tells it what we want done, when we want it now. It's a command. We're commanding this body machine. It's smart. It listens to you. You're using your heart field to do so because that electromagnetic field, a measurable field, it talks to your body. You have 3 brains. Your heart is your command center. Your brain's really cool, but you have 3 brains. Your heart and your gut too are there to serve you. And they're going to help you determine where this drama is, where this trauma is that's been built up. And they're going to help you move it. And they're going to help you replace it with light. And so that's the methodology that I use all the time. I use it all day long. And I'm constantly moving a lot of density out and bringing more light in, no matter what I'm doing. And it's become a great, grand sense of heightened awareness and consciousness that gives me access to more dimensions of information, more guidance, more one-on-one connection with source, and of course, discernment, full body discernment. Now I'm not just wondering what my angels think all the time. I'm the discernment. My body is discerning for me. My mind, my heart, and my gut They give me full body discernment. I don't necessarily need extra guidance, but extra guidance is always good to have. But even that guidance needs to be discerned. Discern with your mind, heart, and gut, not just your mind. Don't try to wrap your head around stuff all the time. Your brain needs a break. You have a heart and a gut to help you out with this too. And so that's my methodology, Loren, and it works so beautifully. I'm so glad to share it.
Thank you. Yes, the mind, heart, and gut, really very powerful there. All right. Well, you teach a lot of things, and we're going to talk a little bit about how people can go deeper into all of your teachings. But let's talk about some of the things that you teach. Something you call this cultural mapping,
Yes.
and how we can really change by understanding cultural mapping and creating real change. Can you explain what you mean by cultural mapping?
So every human being, and this is Anthropology 101, it's every human being has their own specific culture. And any two beings also have a culture. Any group of beings has a culture. And then, of course, all the way up to the layer of global culture. So there's layers to culture. And so those layers of reality are important because we can actually assess on those layers of reality if we want to understand culture in its fullest extent, a layer of reality, and then picking a time, of course. So past, present, or future. And so what I teach in anthropology has never been taught before. And when I finished master's school, I was told that my method was dangerous. So I kept it in a box for 10 years.
Who told you your method was dangerous? A professor?
All my professors, yes, and my peers. It was dangerous because it can affect change so fast. And I'm interested in change. I like to study change.
All right.
My specialty is how do we create culture change effectively? That's my specialty.
Yes,
so,
especially all for the New Earth creators. That's really, yeah. Okay, so go ahead.
So that's who I'm teaching this to. I'm handing it to you all because guess what? Let's be dangerous. Let's get dangerous together. Let's affect change. So what I've done is I'm teaching through the two classes that are available in the package. For example, quantum and galactic anthropology is part of it. And we briefly touch on this method, and then cultural mapping unwraps the method in its fullest. And I give you lots of examples. For example, how do you use this method to help you with your spiritual practice? How do you use this mapping method to help you make sense of your relationships or your family dynamics or your business or a big corporation or a whole entire county or community or a state or a nation? Because this mapping technique is universal. And here's the secret agenda, Lauren. This mapping technique is universal. We can use it actually to help us communicate with other beings beyond humanity and make sense of the data that comes from the galactic. It's actually a way to universally map information no matter where we go from a human perspective, but it also will give us a bridge to be of the information that we're learning from beings that are not agenda for teaching this. But I was told, look, you can't guarantee that if you teach this method that helps people create change so effectively that they're going to use it ethically. That's true. I can't guarantee that. What I do? I'm here to help bring balance. I'm here to help bring sovereignty and freedom to human beings. Someone asked me, what's your niche group? And I said, humanity. Humanity is a vulnerable population in the galactic playing field. Humanity needs this. Everyday human beings who want to try their very best to be the best people they can, who want access to light and have lifestyles of light that they would love to unfurl, and that they want to bring more abundance into their life. This is meant for you. this is for you. And this tool is so interesting and so unique. It does not exist anywhere else. And it's simply because it was built in an academic setting. And now we can use it in a spiritual setting. How cool. I'm so glad I get to teach it finally.
Yes. And so it's part of your course and it's part of a teaching, but can you give us an example of what that would be like? Because if we're looking at culture, like our community right here, we have a culture in this community. We have a culture in our marriage. We have a culture in our family. Businesses, they say that the top 3 people in a business create the culture for the rest of the corporation. So if we are going to
funny.
affect great change,
right? How
and
do we create
if we're
real?
here is if we're new earth creators, integrity is a personal integrity
Yeah.
is the driving force. We know what we know within us that is correct, or I don't want to say right, but that's what integrity is. So give us an example, if you will, if you can think
Sure,
of
I
one.
will. So, for example, right now I'm wanting to implement a practice because it's one thing I'm really bad at. And so I know that meditation is part of that equation for enlightenment. And so I'm aware that this is something I want to bring in. So in the mapping technique, I show you how to completely assess all of your beliefs about something, whether negative or positive, to assess all the social structure around you that's helping you or hindering you from implementing something that you want to do, all the political economy of your culture that's either helping you or hindering you from doing what you're wanting to do. And of course, all the material aspects of that reality that are helping you or hindering you. When you map this out in time, you can see all of the things that have to be tweaked. Now, the reason why this was considered dangerous is because you can take a map and at any point in time, you can create many different kinds of maps over time to get a very good picture of how things are evolving in a specific layer of reality and a specific timeline that you might be examining. But you can also make a map of what you want it to look like in the future. And that's where it gets dangerous, because you can tweak very specific small little things, or you can discover things you never saw before. And then you can tweak it in such a way that you're able to implement change quite quickly. And so what I discovered after using this for over, now it's been 20 years of using this work, what I've discovered is that when you change your beliefs and you change your material support around you, the physicality, and you change those both at the same time, that creates change faster. It doesn't matter if it's at a giant corporation or for a nation state, or it doesn't matter what layer of reality at all, or for yourself as an individual. If you're changing your beliefs about something, and of course the material relationship you have with reality that's either supporting or hindering what you're intending to create, then you're going to see change happen faster. And the social and the social structures and the political economy parts of your cultural reality in that layer of reality are going to change quite quickly. So we often find in anthropology that the political economy stops us from making change happen very quickly. But that's what's so amazing. If you're changing people's beliefs and the material reality or access to material reality, then it ends up changing, it force changes political economy and social structure too. And I know this sounds all very complex. And in a way, the theory behind it is very, very complex, because it's not only a substantive and heuristic theory that's tied to a method which has never existed in anthropology before until now, but the truth is that this is an easy mapping technique that you could teach a child. And that's what's so cool about it. You don't have to be a brainiac to be able to use this. That's what I love about doing any kind of method teaching, is because I end up finding a way to make it simple enough that I can even teach a small child to do it. And it doesn't matter, a heart command. I just taught my 8-year-old nephew how to do heart commands, and he ate it right up. And so these are the kinds of things that I teach, Lauren. And right now, this is radical. I want radical freedom. I want the end of power over. I'd love to see humanity have their equal seat at the galactic table like we deserve. And that's my message. That's my message.
Beautiful, Elizabeth. Thank you for this wonderful work and bringing it forward in such a beautiful way. When we look at the beliefs, the programming of society, and then the material to make change, it does make sense that, oh my gosh, you could have great change. And I can see how it could be a little dangerous when you look at propaganda. Actually, I don't want to go down this dark circle, but the media that we see, as a journalist myself working in the media, I could see how it was controlled as the corporation behind the media organization would tell the journalist to do a story or to not do a story. And so this even goes into our belief systems, right? And where do the belief systems come from? And this is why the spiritual teachers say it's so important to tune into our inner guidance and really listen to that guidance, because that's really our benchmark and that's how we move forward. So I love what you're doing here, because if we can really get out of our way with those belief systems, yes, we can affect great change. And isn't it interesting, even our monetary system is the dollar bill, the fiat money system is under this belief system. So I can see where some would say, watch out with that and work with utmost integrity. So it's very interesting.
Yeah, and that kind of gently leads us into one of the parts of my offering around the fields of limitation, because that false value of money is one of those big, massive programs that's so empty and it doesn't feel right. But the true field of limitlessness that we're meant to access is that all things have infinite value. And if you can just feel that, replacing that belief that everything has a monetary value, well, sure, it can. That's a useful tool, but that's not actually true. That's just a useful tool. That's all. The dollar bill belongs right next to a hammer. And what is the truth? Everything has infinite value. Feel that frequency in your body. And there's 5 very, very clear universal cultural programs, these fields of limitation that I teach about, and then how to get out of them, how to walk out, and how to be accessing what is limitless, what is the truth, and then discerning for yourself, of course, what that feels like and how to end the power over. That's so vital here. If there's one big massive mission I have, it's to help all of you end the power over that anything might have over you and over your life and over your reality, so that we can rebuild this planet and do what we're meant to do, which is be galactic emissaries of universal compassion and unconditional love. That's what humans are meant to do.
And that's what every single one of us showed up at this timeline exactly to do. So you're doing beautiful work and assisting those in the teachings that you offer. So let's talk about that now, Elizabeth. I'm going to show this page for you to, for people to see where your special offer is. We have a link at bit.ly, that's bit.ly, bit.ly/would offer. And you can follow along here and see all the beautiful courses, deep courses that Elizabeth is offering. So Elizabeth, you talked about the first one where it's the creating real change, and this is the cultural mapping. So talk a little bit about these packages.
Yes, I'm going to pull up my screen too, so I can, maybe it won't let me. That's okay. So the first one is access to those 2 classes I was talking about, the quantum and galactic anthropology, where
There
I
you go. I've
discuss.
pulled it up. There you
Oh,
go.
perfect. Thank you. Where I discuss exactly what these two branches of science are all about and why they're so important right now. And I give you an introduction into those branches of science, how they work together, because they seem so far apart, but they're not. And furthermore, of course, how to do that mapping technique I'm talking about. So then that's the next step. And it turned out that both those classes were 3 hours long. So and they're very, very rich, lots of examples. And so we go really deep into
It's
examples
almost,
into these.
I hate to interject, but it's almost, this is it's almost a college level course. This is, you're bringing the anthropology studies,
Right.
right?
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
it is. But I want to point out that I gently take you into this stuff, but as any if you're listening to any class I do, these classes actually are deeply woven with transmissions of light. And
Yes.
so if you don't get it with your head the first time, don't worry about that. Receive first the light that is meant to come through it first. And then go back and listen to it again. And then you'll see, oh, okay, I understand it better now, because that actually gets sort of coded in your field. It's subtle. It's receiving from the heart first, and then with your brain mind. It'll make it easier for you if you find it too heady. But I do very gently introduce you into the realms of this science, and it is college level thinking, yes.
Yes. Okay. Beautiful. All right. So that's the cultural mapping. And then we've got more classes here. Yes.
So then we have a series that I call the multidimensional mastery course, and it's 4 classes. And the first one is all about time. So I take a scientific vantage point to explain spiritually what time is and how it's useful to you. And then, of course, how to stay really present. And then, even better, how to help your family stay present too. How to help your friends and family stay present. Then we get
Yeah.
into the equations of enlightenment, because I'm very good at seeing patterns, Loren. And so I've found by watching and studying ancient knowledge and mystical wisdom and modern mystical wisdom that there's these very clear things that people who are enlightened do. And so I've pulled it together for you to be able to easily use this equation or these steps for yourself. And then the soul skill sets is very important. It's useful to know, hey, what skill sets does my soul have, and how do I advance them? Why do I have them? And how do I access all the soul skill sets? It's sort of like we get a library card to the universal consciousness library, and we tend to kind of hang out in certain sections longer than others. So obviously I've spent a lot of time in the psychic section. But then we realize, oh, I have access to the whole library, and there's some ways that you can access that more, of course. And then the last class is I think I lost the list. I try to memorize this stuff. Yeah, so then the last class is, of course,
full body discernment.
Full body discernment. Yeah, I thought so. And so I teach you how to use my discernment technique, how to use your brain, heart, and gut to make choices and decisions. And this is all about empowerment, folks. So you feel like I actually have the guidance I need, and that you're not always necessarily looking for help outside the self, but using the help outside the self in a very strategic way, of course, but always being able to depend on your own discernment. And that's it's a huge blessing. And then the last part of the first piece is that 1-year subscription to my circle calls. Everybody who joins my community gets access to these calls, and we go in 2 hours together every month at the end of the month, and we dig into whatever's come up, and we take our personal and we link it up to the collective and the galactic. And that's what we do every month. And we build a pillar of light together, which is a wonderful gift we can all give to the planet, usually for some cause or some special thing that we're caring about in that moment. And so that's the first package. The second package, we go into, I give you access to two of probably my most wonderful pieces of work that I've ever done, and I'm very proud of them. The Cultivating Non-Judgment, the Art of Psychic Lenses combines my anthropological training with my mystical and psychic training that I have had. And so I combine them into this whole method and sets of skills that will help you to obtain better objectivity, better non-judgment and compassion, deeper conscious ways of using your third eye more easily, and of course, helping you to continue your journey into enlightenment. Then the second one is they're both interactive ebooks. The second one's the Fields of Limitation and Limitlessness, where I name the 5 fields of limitation. And I give you deep conscious awareness of them. And then we walk out of them. We learn what are the fields of limitlessness? How do we end up functioning as we ought to? These beautiful beings, multidimensional beings on this earth, outside the matrix. How do we function there? And that's what that whole book's about. And so then with the second package, then you get access to those 2 classes too, and the monthly call. And so the third package, I stopped doing this for a long time, Lauren. I stopped giving one-on-ones as part of my packages. And so this time I really wanted people to get support. I have opened up some times over the next couple of few months for people to work with me because a lot of times I would do this and I'd get so booked out that I couldn't even function anymore. I get booked out for 6 months at a time.
Yeah.
And so then I couldn't write any new content. I didn't have time. But I really want to help you all. If you really feel like you want to work with me, I am offering 10 spots to do a 30-minute session with me, which means we go deep into one really big issue you're having. You'll be amazed at how much we get done in 30 minutes. And it's incredible how much information will come through. Those are always recorded. And I'm also offering you a chance to get on one group call with me because 6 people get together and we create this beautiful place together in these group calls. And the group call is a very special time where divine source has brought 6 special people together at the right exact time. It never fails, Lauren. Everybody on those calls needed to hear each other's stuff.
Yes.
And to hear the messages. So you get a 20-minute reading on that group call, and you get to receive feedback from others, and of course hear their readings as well. And then of course that comes along with all of the rest of the packages pieces that are available for that third piece. But I'm very, very proud to be able to offer this now. I feel like I just had my birthday and I'm finally at this point where I am actually embodying the work I'm meant to do fully. And I've reached a peak point and I get to share that light. Yay.
Yay. And you're back with your calendar to spend more time with people.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Well, your work is incredible. Thank you so much, Elizabeth Wood. That special offer is really a beautiful way for people to go deep in these topics, to really understand it, to affect great change in your life. Your work is very well received by our community. You've done these courses over time. They've evolved, you've evolved, and the teachings are timeless. And so I just commend you for the beautiful evolution of your work and the sharing and the movement for New Earth. We're all here to move into New Earth. And, ahead of 2020, that's what we're here for. We can feel already 2020 energies are upon us, and it's time to really affect great change. So this is very empowering and liberating as well. I want to say that Elizabeth's special offer if you are interested and you purchase that, you will get a ticket into our QCTV after party, which begins immediately after this live stream. So please join us. Elizabeth will take a few minutes and you can ask her your questions in our Zoom after party. We join on Zoom and it's real fun. You can register at QCTV/membership, bit.ly/QCTV. And I will now come back to both of us, you and I right here, and we'll just wrap up this conversation. I really love the work that you're doing and all of it. What do you think about 2020 and the energies that we're moving into? I mean, really, that's why you're doing your teachings, to really mobilize New Earth. But what is your sense of that feeling that we're entering into right now?
Yeah, I feel like we're on this big giant deconstruction site called Earth.
Yes.
And we're deconstructing the matrix. It's like this giant, castle, and we're deconstructing it. We're not throwing all of the elements out. We're putting them in piles. Some of it gets burned and good riddance.
Yes.
Some of it we save and we're going to rebuild with some of these elements, like money. Money's going to be quite different over the next decade, and that's a good thing. But we're not going to throw money out the window. We ought to throw away the idea that that's all that we can use to value anything. So we'll throw away and we'll burn up the limiting belief around everything has to have monetary value as a first foundational concept of value. But we're going to be changing both the beliefs and the material world that we are working with here, friends. 2020 is the global realization that that's what we're here to do, and it's going to make it happen super fast. And if you weren't sure about how fast stuff's actually happening, literally in a matter of days, my children have come into the utilization of certain technology that took my entire childhood for me to access. And what they've experienced is my childhood in a matter of days. And I've watched it. And my husband are like, we're like mind blown. Oh my gosh, our childhood just happened in a week to our children.
Okay, give an example. Give us example, because is it like with the technology?
Yeah. So we've let my 5-year-old start playing this game called Terraria that looks kind of like really old Mario Brothers, sort of. And in a matter of days, she's gone from playing Terraria to playing her own Skyrim character. Now, to be fair here to all of us parents, I'm not letting my kid hang out on the computer all day long. It's certain periods of time we get to play games. We all enjoyed playing the games together. Mm-hmm. But in 1 week, she went from what I experienced many years of learning how to play these games and basic looking tech to incredibly advanced, brand new stuff that I hadn't had access to until I was an adult. And so that's how fast everything's getting compressed. Yes. And this reconstruction site of Earth, that's going to compress too. And very quickly, we're going to see massive changes materially. And we're going to rebuild. We're going to literally, very physically rebuild. And I have a message for the men here. This is why Grandpa Bob really came through so strongly. He was a chemical engineer, incredibly brilliant man. And he's said to the men thankfully through my heart space, I've been able to hear him. But he's saying to the men, everything you make, all the buildings you build, all the things you create as the masculine, you have the power to weave beauty and love and passion and harmony with the earth into everything you make. This goes for women too, but the masculine especially is good at manifesting physically through their heart and arms, right? That's what the upper body strength of the masculine and the masculine form. They're able to build the buildings. On many construction sites, you'll definitely see women, yes, but most of the buildings that have been built on this planet have been built by men. And they're manifesting their fears, they're manifesting their desires, and all of their feelings of lack, perhaps, in these buildings that they're creating. And Grandpa Bob is saying, embrace your true ability to weave incredible love and power into everything you create and touch. So all of us, it's a message for men and women. We can do this. We can weave light into everything we make. This is part of the rebuilding process. So we have to relearn how to do that. So the new things we create will be full of light and love at the very quantum level. And that's the message that I have at this moment about 2020. That's what we're going to be doing. And it's all going to happen really fast.
Happy times, people, happy times. Well, it is quite amazing. I wanted to share too, when I was a young adult getting into journalism, that was where you had to be in the union to touch a television camera. But now look at us, we're on YouTube.
Isn't that wild? Oh my gosh.
Young kids, they don't watch television anymore. YouTube is the television. Yeah. And so kids that go to school in elementary and definitely in middle school are already being given assignments to make videos and to edit videos. And that's something that some of us adults are still learning. So that is just an amazing prospect when we really think about that and the great change that's there. So it's going to be fun. Keep it in love and light. And remember that our journey is to really dig deep into everything that takes us away from love. So it's a happy journey. Elizabeth, thank you so much, Goddess. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We are here for our after party on Zoom. We'll bring everybody in for that. Please join us. But I want to give a big heart hug to Elizabeth Wood, seer and scientist. If you would like Elizabeth's special offer, please check it out. It is available here at acoustichealth.com/special offers/Elizabeth Wood. And you can also go to a quick link, bit.ly/wood offer. Again, bit.ly/bit offer. That gets you into our QCTV after party, as well as the beautiful special offer that Elizabeth has for us. So check out our webpage at acoustichealth.com and join us in our QCTV after party. Thank you, everyone. This has been another wonderful quantum conversation. We'll dance our way now to the cosmic heart. listening to this quantum conversation, and thank you for dancing with us to the cosmic heart. As we raise our own vibration, we raise the vibration of the planet. This show is dedicated to you and all awakening hearts as we are here to shine our bright light and amplify our love. Access all quantum conversations, special offers from our guests, and online healing retreats by visiting acoustichealth.com. I'm Loren Gailey, and from my sacred heart to yours, I honor your magnificent love and light. We leave you now with music from the universe. Music literally created by the universe as musical notes were assigned to mathematical equations. The result is this beautiful music available at acoustichealth.com. Namaste. Thank you, everyone. Okay, thank you, everyone. How beautiful. We are here. Hello, I'm going to bring some people in. Well, we had a couple people who were here, but then they left. So maybe it's just going to be us. I want to welcome Suzanne. I want to welcome Shirley. I want to welcome Maria. And I want to welcome Kay. Okay. Bye, everyone. Well, hold on. I'm going to stop our live stream. Bye.